Hey, Viking fans, a major news organization given the Vikings some credit, possibly a division title. Let's talk about that next in three, two, one. Gather around, school brothers and sisters. This is Skull World, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. You can find me on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at Skull World. Make sure you give me a holler. Love talking to other Vikings fans, but make sure you do me a favor. Do me a solid right now. Click a like below. Get me to 50 likes. That really drives up the video. I that did it every does it every time. Give me to 50 likes and it does it on its own. I appreciate it. Also comment. I want to hear what you gotta guys think. Um as long as it's about the Vikings. I love talking about it. I appreciate it. Skull Vikes, let's go. Let's go. A major sports news organization gave us some credit and says the Vikings can win the North, and they want to tell us how. And I thought, you know what? Let me read it for the first time with you because I want to know how the Vikings are going to win the North, and I want to know how Fox Sports is going to tell us how we are going to win the North, and I want to react to it as I read it with you. You're reacting it to me too. It was brought out today. Yep, it was brought out today, Tuesday, May 30th. This is how the Vikings are going to win the North, according to Fox. I can't give credit to the writer because they didn't give me one. So I guess this is representing all of Fox North or Fox Sports, not Fox North, but Fox Sports NFL. So it starts out, yes, the Minnesota Vikings can win the NFC North. Here's how. Um, they got Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson on the main picture. The Minnesota Vikings did it before. They can do it again, they say. That's sound logic. While Minnesota 13-4 record didn't ultimately end up mattering in a one and done postseason appearance, the Vikings have figured out ways to win, ultimately claiming the NFC North last season for the first time since 2017. Are you as good as your record shows? Who's to say? But the silver lining of the season in which you play in and win 11 and 1 score games is the ability to overcome adversity with continued belief in your team, which is an intangible necessity for success. So they give us a lot of credit of overcoming our troubles and winning one score games. We won 11 of them last year. Unfortunately, the one we do lose is in the playoffs. That ability is that one they can carry over into the year and the Vikings competitive rebuild, as general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah put it. We're all aligned. This is a quote by Kwesi. We're all aligned on what our vision is and how we see the needs of our team this year, next year, and overall our whole time horizon. Adolfo-Mensah said at the end of March. I think when people look at teams, they sometimes do it in a very binary way, and they ask, "Are you either all in or tearing down and rebuilding?" And I don't really look at the world that way. The way we look at it is we're trying to navigate both worlds. We're trying to live in today and tomorrow, or the competitive rebuild, however you phrase it or market it. And so I think that's kind of how we've approached this offseason and our time horizons going forward. So, he's still competitive rebuild. He wants us to be competitive as we build this team. He's done it right, man. He's done it fairly quickly. As far as navigating the Spielman mistakes on contracts and pushing money into the future. And he's almost out of it, man. He's almost there. He's almost in this situation where it's his team and it's built in his image. So a lot could be said for what Kwesi's done. Goes on to say, in order to strike the balance of rebuilding but still being competitive, the Vikings need to lean on their offensive continuity. Yes, wide receiver Adam Thielen is gone. Running back Dalvin Cook might or might not be far behind him, but they still have the league's offensive player of the year and wide receiver Justin Jefferson and he doesn't need much help to keep that offense humming. Consider the Vikings finished first in the league in targets, 184, receptions, 128, and receiving yards, 1809, while splitting targets with Minnesota mainstay in Thielen. I don't know if he split a whole lot with Thielen, but technically he did. As great of a story as Thielen's career is, and important as he was to the Vikings franchise, he had just 70 receptions for 107 targets and 716 receiving yards last season. It's nothing to snuff at, but it was just a sniff at, snuff at. I guess that's a word. I thought it was sniff at, nothing to sniff at, but apparently it's nothing to snuff at. But it was just enough to let Jefferson be Jefferson. With Thielen gone, rookie Jordan Addison contends with the expectations of stepping into Thielen's role. As of now, sorry, choked up a little bit there. Jordan Addison has not been practicing, so a little worried there. And he's not doing too many interviews either, famously. So there's a precedent for that. Last year's Offensive Rookie of the Year, Garrett Wilson, who was the second receiver taken in 2022 NFL Draft, finished 83 catches, 147 targets, 1,103 yards. Addison doesn't have to live up to those numbers to be effective. For the Vikings, not even close. The fourth wide receiver taken in last year's draft was Jameson Williams by the Detroit Lions between the ACL injury suffered in the national championship and latest suspension due to violating NFL gambling policy that hasn't worked out quite yet for Detroit. For a better comparison, Chris Olave is taken third among wide receivers. The caveat with this comp is that Olave was responsible for way more of the target share than Addison will be, but Olave caught 72 of 119 targets and finished with 1,042 yards. The point is that the receivers drafted in similar positions to Addison have been asked to do a lot more than Addison will be in order to make their team successful, with Addison only being asked to complement the NFL's best receiver in order to keep the Vikings offense running, and likelihood that he ends up being the case is very good. And while the Vikings want to maintain the status quo on offense, they need to improvement on defense. That's where the new defensive coordinator Brian Flores comes in. Flores. So again, Vikings offense is going to be fine. I don't have no issues with where it's going to be. I do want it to be more consistent throughout the game, and I think that'll come with experienced play calling and a more fine tuned and everybody being on the same page and being comfortable and playing fast because they don't got to think. The defense, on the other hand, needs to just be revamped. And the number one place to do that was coach, and they got Brian Flores. The Vikings pass rush last year was anemic, tallying just 38 total sacks in the league's bottom third. Fortunately for Minnesota, or perhaps by design, Flores was overseeing one of the league's biggest pass rush overhauls, where he had coach of the Miami Dolphins, known for creative, fluid, and aggressive scheme. Flores Dolphins finished last in sacks in his first year, but by the time he left Miami 2 years later, his unit had shot their way into the top 5 in 2021. Dolphins recorded 48 sacks, and they did it without having a single player hit double digits in Flores' 3-year tenure. I just realized that you guys haven't been able to follow along. For some reason, it shows my mouse moving, but it's not showing the text moving. And I do apologize. I don't know what's going on. It's a StreamYard thing right now. Let me continue here. So Dolphins recorded 48 sacks, and they did without having a single player hit double digits in Flores' 3-year tenure. So that's awesome. That's because Flores fronts change and evolve. They confuse opponents with a variety of players that could be coming on a blitz. There's a delicate balance between having a ton of checks or options and not overwhelming players from the jump. His scheme also incorporates exotic personnel groupings and defensive backfield in ever rotating cast of characters to keep offenses on their heels. That is great to hear. It's great to hear. That's exactly what he's been saying too. The Vikings personnel can grasp his system quickly. They could be in for a Dolphin-esque turnaround as soon as this year. Dolphin-esque turnaround, I guess. I was honestly inconsistent, but when he called the plays and it was his defense, they did good. think they understand my nature as far as wanting to be aggressive but not reckless. Flores said while meeting with the media last week. So while the Vikings had close calls last season, or perhaps not as good as their division championship crown would suggest, they also have continuity to lean on, belief to fall back on, and a vastly improved defense and could keep them out of the trouble while the offense continues to score. And the division is wide open as the NFC North. That could well be enough. So the Vikings or the NFC North is wide open. Honestly, there's two players right now, and I think most people agree. And the Packers and the Bears aren't one of those teams. It's the Vikings and the Lions. The NFC, and again, I apologize that the text wasn't following me. It was really weird. Usually, it's pretty good, but not today. The Vikings are and the Lions are there's the only two teams I think have a chance of winning the division, and the Vikings are at the top mainly because of the consistency, the firepower, and the offense that's coming back, and the change in the defensive coordinator is the number one jump. If we had a top 15 defense last year, we beat the Giants. We could possibly win the next game. It wasn't in the cards because our defense was so bad. Ed Donatil was that bad of a defensive coordinator. The scheme was just completely imperfect because we did not have any interior pass rush. But I agree. It really I agree with Fox Sports. It really revolves around the Minnesota Vikings improving their defense. I think they've done it by getting Flores just by itself. And if we extend Daniil Hunter and maybe get one more weapon on defense at the defensive interior, I think we make the big strides to turn this defense around. We go from what I think is probably a potential top 20 defense to to the low teens, basically with Flores just being so creative and being so aggressive. The turnovers I think that are going to come off of being aggressive. The Vikings are going to rebound, and it's funny to say rebound because they won 13 games. Their defense is going to rebound, be a good enough defensive team to propel the Vikings to a similar record. I got us 12-5, just like I did the year before. We can lose more games and still be better. They can both be true. All right. See you next time. Skull Vikes. Make sure you subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Make sure give me to 50 likes. Push this video. Skull Vikings. Cue the music.